So, let me ask you something. Were you always told you were so mature for your age? Did you learn how to hold everything together long before you even really knew what was happening? If that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to dive into the psychology of the child who grew up way too fast. And more importantly, we'll talk about how to finally update that old wiring that kept you safe back then, but might be holding you back now. Yeah, and people probably even praised you for it. They might have called you an old soul, right? But they didn't realize that you were actually handling things that, honestly, no kid should ever have to. You got so good at reading the room, at sensing the whole emotional temperature, right? You learned to just push your own needs down and keep everything stable. And you were doing all of this before you could even really process what was going on. And that right there, that's the connection we're really digging into today. How all of that early responsibility creates the reality you might be living in now. You know what I mean? That constant exhaustion, feeling like it's impossible to ask for help, and that weird nagging guilt that shows up the second you even think about resting. Okay, and this is super important. This is not about blame at all. It's not about pointing fingers at anyone. It's about understanding the absolutely brilliant way your mind adapted to keep you safe. And from there, it's about finally giving yourself permission to grow in all the ways you never got a chance to. All right, so let's get into it. First up, survival mode activated. We're going to recognize those hidden adaptations. Let's start by really looking at what happened. What kicked on this survival mode in the first place? A lot of the time, this stuff isn't about some big, loud, obvious trauma. So often, it was the quiet, unspoken necessity of your environment. Maybe you just learned not to ask for things because you knew money was tight. Or maybe you had to become the emotional manager for a parent who was struggling. You became the family peacekeeper or even a substitute parent, just because this situation, well, it demanded it. So, in response to all that, your brain did something incredible. It created what we can call survival adaptations. And let's be really, really clear on this. These are not flaws. They're not weaknesses. They are super intelligent neurological responses that were absolutely essential for you to navigate an unstable world. And what's fascinating is how specific these adaptations get. Take hypervigilance. That's the skill of constantly scanning people's faces, their tone of voice, the energy in the room, all to predict what's coming next. Then there's emotional self-containment. That's where you learn to handle all your distress completely alone because relying on anyone else just felt, well, unsafe. And finally, premature responsibility. This one's huge. It meant you had to skip just being a kid. You skipped the play, the exploring, all to manage very adult concerns. Okay, so that wiring got hard-coded back in childhood. But here's the kicker. It never got an update once the danger was over. So now, let's look at how that old programming echoes in our adult lives today. And this chart just lays it out so perfectly. You can see the direct line, that premature responsibility, where any little mistake felt like it could cause a catastrophe. Well, that grows into perfectionism. That emotional self-containment, learning that you're the only one you can truly count on, that makes it incredibly difficult to ask for help as an adult. And hypervigilance, what does that become? It turns into those caretaker tendencies where you're managing everyone else's feelings, sometimes before they're even aware of them themselves. And all of this can lead to a really specific kind of loneliness. It's that feeling, even when you're in a room full of people, you feel totally different. It's because your worries as a kid were never about kid stuff, not like your peers. You were dealing with heavy adult-level stress. And that gap, it can feel incredibly isolating. But, and this is a big but, it's not all bad news. Not at all. This experience also forged some absolutely incredible strengths in you. The trick is learning how to honor those gifts without letting them just run your life on autopilot. And let's be super clear about this. We're talking about real, valuable gifts here. Things like a deep emotional intelligence, being the calm one when everything's falling apart, being someone who is just unwaveringly reliable. These are serious strengths you built. So here's the most important takeaway for this section. The goal is not to get rid of these amazing qualities. The goal is to stop them from running on autopilot. It's about shifting them from a default childhood program to a conscious choice you make as an adult, one that doesn't come at the expense of your own well-being. So, how do we actually do that? Well, it starts by intentionally practicing all the things you had to skip. It's all about reclaiming those parts of your development that got pushed to the side to make room for all that responsibility. Okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. And you've got to start small. Seriously. Try a hobby just for the heck of it with zero goal of being good at it. Ask for a really small, low-stakes favor. State a simple need out loud. And here's a big one. Notice that urge to jump in and fix someone else's problem, and just don't. I'm telling you, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel uncomfortable. And that discomfort, that's how you know you're doing exactly the right thing. All right, the final piece of this puzzle is all about actively updating that old software. It's a process of becoming the adult for yourself that you desperately needed back then. And this question right here, this is probably your most powerful tool. The next time you feel that old anxiety bubble up, that urge to control and manage everything, just pause and ask yourself this. What it does is create a little bit of space between the trigger and your automatic reaction. And in that space, you get to choose something different. This is what people mean when they talk about conscious reparenting. So when that guilt about resting pops up, you can actually talk to that younger part of yourself and say, hey, it's safe to rest now. You were never supposed to hold everything together. It's these tiny daily practices that slowly but surely teach your nervous system that safety doesn't require constant, exhausting vigilance anymore. Okay, as we start to wrap this up, I really want you to hear this. You were not broken for growing up too fast. You were resourceful. Your system did exactly what it had to do to get you through. And here's the really beautiful part of all this. You don't have to get rid of your past. You get to integrate it. You keep all that wisdom, that incredible strength, but you finally get to pair it with the lightness, the play, and the support that you missed out on, that you always deserved. So I want you to take a second and really think about this. Did you grow up too fast? Which of these patterns that we talked about really hits home for you right now? Is it the perfectionism? The difficulty asking for help? Whatever it is, just acknowledging it. That is a huge first step. Look, you were never meant to live in survival mode forever. The work now is to update that wiring, to reclaim what you lost, and to give yourself the chance to grow up all over again. But this time, it's completely on your terms.